Good evening, everybody. Welcome to League Racing TV, round number 7 here of EML League 1, and we are at the historic Sao Paulo circuit, the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, for the Brazilian Grand Prix. My name is Luke Etheridge. Joining me in the commentary box, as always, on a Wednesday evening is Aidan Carter. Aidan, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well this evening. Thank you very much. Yeah, looking forward to round number 7 of the season. We're getting right into the business end of the championship now, aren't we? And it's couldn't be much closer in the championship, and like you say, such a historic track, this one as well. Great for racing. It's a real level playing field of a track, you've got to say. It's such a short track and everybody knows it so well that it's kind of like Silverstone in a similar sense that everybody seems to be fast here. So I predict it's going to be a pretty close race.
Yeah, being such a short track, having such a mixture as well, first and the final sector, all being about speed, and that middle sector all being about really the mechanical grip of the car, a very twisty part of the circuit. If we cast our minds back a month ago now to what was the US Grand Prix at Austin, you might remember it was quite an interesting finish. QVR Campbell taking the victory. It looked like, right until the end, as if it was going to be a QVR 1-2, but Verstappen running out of fuel at the end, dropped him down to 4th, and Justas and Nathan for the Relentless team were able to claim 2nd and 3rd. So what that has done to the championship, QVR are now leading by 9 points from Relentless, 215 versus 206. XL are 3rd on 138. They had their best results of the season with a 5th and a 6th. Then TTG Academy and CPI Esports rounding out the top half. Latam, IRT and Elite Racing Team not too far behind. And then a bit further back for IFR and QRT. And as it has been all season, it's that battle between QVR and Relentless. I mean, if we have a look here, they've won all but one of the races. They've got 2/3 of the podium so far this season. They have been very dominant, and there's not a lot between them. This is going to go down to the wire.
Yeah, it really is. Like you say, going to go down to the wire. They're very kind of similar in their approaches, aren't they? They've got kind of drivers in there that maybe aren't always the fastest in qualifying. We've seen faster drivers in qualifying, specifically maybe the LFR team. They seem to be probably one of the strongest people in qualifying, but they're so consistent in the races. They're always at the front. They always find themselves in that battle at the very front of the field. So you can rely on them to get good results every week, and that is exactly why they are so far ahead of the rest of the championship. I mean, you think back to France when it was around a 4-way battle between XL and TTG. They were in there as well, but they've just been dropped in recent rounds completely. So, yeah, absolutely dominant from the two of those teams. And, yeah, barely separable at this point.
Yeah, barely separable indeed. And let's have a look at the drivers then that they have gone for in tonight's race. See what interesting things we have in front of us. It is going to be Campbell and Verstappen tonight driving for QVR, that partnership that brought them so much success last time out. Killer Blue and Tincam will be racing for XL. It'll be Chris G and Slash for TTG as they try to get back ahead of XL for that sort of best of the rest slot. Sieb and Senna for IRT. I believe it is actually going to be now Tyman and Jonah, the reserve driver for QRT. Bavel and Fleddy for IFR, Cyclonado and another reserve, Lucas Supremo for Latam Formula Racing, Robbie and Mr. BT for CPI. It is going to be Ramazan and the only Thomas, so Elite Racing Team, another one bringing in a reserve, and Ramazan making his debut, and then Nathan and Izzet Kush for Relentless. And Brazil, as we've said already, quite an exciting circuit, always seems to provide good racing, and there's always a chance of that tropical weather from the rainforest playing a part.
Oh, yeah, definitely playing a part, isn't it? We've probably jinxed it now, and it's going to end up being full wet. We'll wait and see. But, yeah, it's a very, very close track. DRS trains here, very common as well, because the middle of the track is so slow that dirty air doesn't really play that much of a part. And then pretty much the rest of the track is a DRS zone. So you see people towing everybody up that straight. Well, all the way up to turn 1 from turn 13 and then all the way down to turn 4 as well. It's pretty much flat out bar the braking zone for turn 1. So, yeah, you'll see a lot of DRS trains here as well. And this is a track as well that does favour those that are running with a pad. I imagine there will be a few drivers in this field running with that, so we'll have to keep an eye out on that. Some of those drivers may come to the forefront just because of the traction zones on this track. It does make it a little bit easier for those drivers. But, yeah, we shall wait and see who comes out on top.
Yeah, we will wait and see. Typical league racing format, of course. 18 minutes of qualifying and then 36-lap race for half-distance race. And as you can see, it is bright sunshine at the moment for qualifying. We've got a full grid of 20 cars and everyone just waiting to head out onto the track. And being such a short circuit, don't be surprised if we get more than that typical 3 runs. Expect drivers to possibly even get 4 runs in this session, and everyone seems to be waiting at the moment. The only car you can just about make out is that red Mercedes safety car right at the end of the pit lane. So no one in too much of a rush at the moment to head out on the circuit, although I do believe we have got one of the cars just about to head out there, and it looks like one of the Relentless boys. It looks like it might be Ariel Nathan. He's going to be the first man to head out there. We always see Relentless and QVR go out early, and Nathan, so far this season, I mean, 4 races, he's won one, got a podium in the other, and he's always been in the top 10. Like you said, very consistent performances from Relentless and QVR, and that's why they're at the top, because they've not necessarily, and especially in qualifying, not necessarily always been the fastest. There's been, you know, LRT have had a pole position, CPI have had a pole position, QVR and Relentless have always been there or thereabouts. It's just that consistency in the races.
Yeah, consistency in the races, like you say, they're always at the front. They seem to get the strategy right pretty much every time, apart from fuel strategy, of course, for QVR last time out. But yeah, they're really, really consistent in the races, and they've got the speed in qualifying if they need it. But that's the thing about the 2021 game, is that qualifying isn't as important as it has been maybe on the previous game. The previous game, it was so difficult to overtake, and everybody, the skill gap really on the last game was so narrow that it was important to have a good qualifying because it was difficult to make your way through the pack. That's not the case on this game. So if you do have a poorer qualifying, like Verstappen did last time out, of course he qualified 14th on the grid in Kota, he still managed to work his way back through the field with a solid drive. So yeah, you can always rely on QVR Relentless to have good races. Yeah,
certainly. And let's see if they're going to get a good qualifying. As we go on board then with Ariel Nathan around this circuit down towards the Senna S. One of 10 left-handers, of course, on this circuit. 5 right. It is an anti-clockwise circuit. And straight away, Nathan has invalidated coming through the Senna S. So let's see what QVR Verstappen can do for the championship leaders as he looks to possibly get his first pole position of the season. His best result was a victory at the Bahrain Grand Prix, hugging the left-hand side as he comes down the Retro-Aposta, the back straight, heading towards spotting the braking point for turn number 4, Decida de Largo, downhill, very easy to run wide onto the runoff area, very easy to invalidate, but Verstappen keeps it nice and clean. Now the double right-hander at Ferraggiora, turns number 6 and 7, lifting up through there, upshifting through the second part. Campbell, his teammate, getting well out of the way. Pinarino, this very long left-hand corner. Drivers try to stay towards the left-hand side as much as possible for the first part, drifting back over to the left for the Bico de Pato, where, of course, Hamilton and Albon had that coming together at the 2019 Brazilian Grand Prix. Through Magulio and then Young Sao. A crucial corner to get right pretty much the entire time for the third sector. Your entire lap can be ruined if you go too deep there, because it is now just flat out all the way to the finish. You'll go over to the left-hand side, end up cutting that pit line, staying as close to the pit wall as possible. Verstappen comes across the line in a 106.870, instantly beaten 33 thousandths by his teammate.
Yeah, Campbell crossed the line. I was actually on board with Campbell for that lap. Campbell was about a 10.5 up by the end of the second sector, but lost it towards the end of the lap. He didn't have a bad run through Jung Chao, so that maybe suggests to me that Verstappen's got a slightly faster car in a straight line, which of course could be quite a help in this race. Everybody still going on laps. Slash is set at 9.7. That's not representative. He's going again for TTG. Thyman crossed the line, but he invalidated. But it was a 16.5, so it wasn't representative either. Milan coming up towards the end of Milan. Tinkan's gone third on a 7.7, but that's on the medium compound tyre. And Sieb's just gone a 10.5 behind him in fourth on a 7.8. As Isaac crosses the line now for Relentless and jumps to the top of the timesheets. 2/10 clear of, 2/10 clear of QVR. But as I say that, Milan now goes to the top for IFR.
Yeah, IFR had a bit of a struggle, if we're being honest, so far this season. The Academy did get a podium at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and if there's any race which is going to lead to crazy results, as now Mr. BT goes fastest, it is going to be Azerbaijan. But since that, they've only had a couple of top 10 finishers, really have struggled so far this season. Nathan heading towards the finish line. He's set to go for a second lap after invalidating, and he does a 106.592, 11 thousandths off Mr. BT at the moment. Interestingly, that we've had a few drivers go out on a set of the medium tyres. Tinkan, the fastest on those at the moment, 13th now on a 107.744. It's clear, especially in a field this close, if you want any chance of getting into the top 10, you're going to have to be on a set of the soft tyres. And the alternate strategy, it can definitely work around here, but a lot of it does depend on when you catch the car in front. If you catch them at a DRS zone, you're laughing. If you catch them just coming through the middle sector, you're going to lose chunks of time.
Yeah, it's really costly here being in traffic, and like you mentioned, the DRS trains as well. It's so common that those on the alternate strategy just get stunted by that DRS train. They can't get through that pack. We've seen it so many times already this season. Killer Blue, one of the next drivers to cross the line, a 7.2 on the soft compound tyres. So the second slowest soft runner, bar Krishy at the moment, who is the bottom of that. And Killer Blue has actually just dropped it coming out of turn 1. just before turn 2 has lost his front wing. He's still going in the session, but that was not what he needed. Someone else has just crossed the line to go a bit faster. I didn't quite see who that was. That's Burrell, actually, for IFR. So IFR have had a good qualifying session so far. 3rd and 4th for Milan and Borrell in 3rd and 4th. But yeah, they've not had a good season, IFR, really, have they? They've started out the season strong and then never really was able to live up to that. And they really need a bounce back this evening, as Campbell, on his 3rd lap on that set of soft compound tyres, goes even faster and pops himself now onto the 2nd row.
Yeah, interesting that Campbell's gone for that. That's not something you'd ideally want to do. I know in this game you do see drivers quite often going for a 2nd run on a set of tyres, but another one as well, Verstappen, he's also gone for a 3rd run on the same set of soft tyres, but was only able to keep himself in 9th place. Obviously, they'll be wanting to do better times later on. It looks like pretty much everyone has set a time at the moment. Only the 2 ELT drivers going out a bit later than everyone else, and it's CPI Mr. BT, fastest of everyone. Nathan, Campbell, Milan, Burrell, and Cyclonado and Izzet, all within a 10th of a second of pole position at the moment. 7 cars within a 10th of a second. You do not get that too often, and 12 cars within about 3 tenths. Very close at this moment in time in this session. We've seen CPI get a pole position earlier this season, but it did not end well for them. Will it go better this time around? ERT Ramazan, he's making his debut. And I feel like we've said this so many times this season, and I think one day we won't. ERT, it's just been a bit of a difficult season. Yes, there's been signs of promise, as Samba, for example, taking that victory at the Austrian Grand Prix. But for whatever reason, they've just not been able to get it together.
No, it's been a bit of an odd season for Elite, hasn't it? They've been so fast all season long. They've been factors in pretty much every race that they've taken part in. They've had a major factor at the front. The problem is that they only ever tend to have one car at the front, and the other cars either out of the race or really struggling. They just can't get a consistent result with both cars in the same race. It's kind of a shame, really, because in terms of their raw speed, they're probably one of the fastest teams here. Of course, they qualified to get into League One, and they qualified joint top with IFR, and both of them haven't performed well this season. So yeah, a bit of a shame to see ERT so far down. Ramazan on his debut, first time on the board, is a 7.4, so he's now the slowest of the soft runners, but there's still plenty of time in the session to improve on that. Toma as well, he's coming up to the line, but a 50.7 in the middle sector is not that representative. He crosses the line and goes just ahead of his teammate on a 7.3, but so far in qualifying for ERT, not going quite their way.
Yeah, I think to their credit, a lot of their drivers are now running no assists, and even though you are allowed to use ABS, traction control, and all the usual assists, obviously pit assist, DRS assist, ERS assist, steering and braking assist are banned here in EML League 1, all assists being banned in the top division. I think their drivers are deciding, and fair play to them, to just stick to using no assists in everything now, which might be why we've seen that bit of a dip. So hopefully for their sake, maybe next season, there will of course be another one. They might be able to get things up slightly more. QRT Jonah, he's up slightly at the moment, 2 tenths of a second coming through the first sector, which is a big time advantage indeed. So let's see what the QRT man can do. Timon is in 10th, and Jonah, I believe, was a very late substitute into this session. Right until the final few minutes, it looked as though it was going to be Marlon driving for them. Yellow flags as drivers just back off ever so slightly, and straight away you can see the difference between the set of mediums and the set of the soft tyres. This is going to put him very close to the top 10, especially because he's getting a lovely, and I'm sure unintentional, slipstream from the only Toma at the moment. So there goes Toma diving into the pit lane. Let's see what the QRT driver can do. Comes across the line, gets himself up into 9th place. Very, very decent lap time. And QRT, they've been a solid midfield team so far, as Lucas Supremo now goes fastest. QRT, they always seem to be there or thereabouts on that alternate strategy.
Yeah, they definitely do, don't they? Of course, they were a late entry into this championship as well. We mustn't forget that. So the fact they're at the bottom of the championship at the moment doesn't really reflect the pace they've had. Their only real hindrance so far this season has been penalties, picking up penalties in races that have stopped them from marching their way forwards. As now Nathan goes to the top on a 6.4, so first person into the fours, and that gap of about 7 drivers all within a 10th is now no longer the case with Nathan and Lucas Supremo at the top of the timesheets. But yeah, like I was saying, QRT's bottom placement in the championship doesn't really reflect the pace that they've got. They've got a lot of potential as a team. It's a shame we've not seen them for the full season, because you would reckon they'd probably be somewhere in and around 6th and 7th, maybe in that battle with IRT at the moment.
Yeah, I think if they've done 3 races so far, if you double their points, around about where CPI would be, but obviously CPI, another one who actually missed the first round of the season, is Izzet Kush. Now gets himself up into second. It is a relentless 1-2 at the moment, with QVR down in 5th and 10th place. So I'm sure they'll be hoping to rectify that. Campbell has invalidated this lap, so he won't be doing an improvement. Burrell further back for IFR, also another one that is struggling, and Verstappen, a 10th down coming through the first sector. But this is another one we've seen before. QVR, yes, they've had the same amount of pole positions so far this season, but sometimes in qualifying and even the first half of the race, case in point being the Austin Grand Prix, we thought Relentless were going to run away with that one, and then all of a sudden, in the second stint, QVR just looked unstoppable.
Yeah, that's been the case really, hasn't it? The QVR have been so strong in the races. Their qualifying's been a little bit up and down. I think especially with Verstappen. Verstappen we know is a great racer, but qualifying isn't necessarily his forte. I think he could get away with a poor qualifying at COTA because we know that it's easy to overtake at Austin, and we know the alternate strategy at Austin is very powerful. He'll be less happy with being this far down this time around. He was just going to go again, and he's run really wide through turn 2, so that's immediately his second lap on this set of softs ruined as well. So Verstappen will want to try and get a bit further up. 12th or 11th isn't too bad on the grid. It will be the lead of those on that alternate strategy, but we know the alternate strategy isn't as powerful here as it has been at some other tracks we've raced at this season. So a poor qualifying here is punished a lot more than at previous tracks we've raced at.
Yeah, certainly. Of course, being in the midfield, it always tends to squeeze up around turn 1. It's not too often you get a clean turn 1 here without some driver getting involved in an incident. You don't really want to be in the middle of that accordion effect heading down towards the centre S. Yellow flags as drivers are just getting out of the way. You've seen everyone clear the path for Tinkan at the moment. He's the slowest driver, but he's the only driver out there whose best lap is still on a set of the medium tyres, and he is now 3/4 of a second up. That would put him only around where Senna and Killer Blue are at the moment. So XL, after such a promising performance last time out with a 5th and 6th place for their two drivers, Rocco and J. Cole, just not quite going to plan at this track, but still plenty of time to change. Tinkan sets himself up into 14th. So we've seen second runs now from the majority of the drivers. Cyclonado, I think he might actually be heading out onto his 3rd run after abandoning that second one, and he is, unfortunately for him, just invalidated. And it is Nathan fastest from Isaac Kush, Lucas Supremo, Timon and Mr. BT, QVR, Campbell, Milan, Borrell, Cyclonado and Christie rounding out the top 10. 5 minutes remaining. Mr. BT dives it into the pit lane. And a lot of drivers heading out a bit earlier on. You've got Seeb heading out earlier on. Cyclonado has done it as well. I think Robbie as well for CPI. Just trying to avoid the traffic, but it's always that gamble. Yes, you get a cleaner track, and we know how difficult traffic management can be around here, but you're not getting the track. Well, in another way, you're getting a cleaner track. It hasn't been rubbered in.
Yeah, exactly. The track conditions aren't necessarily at their best with 5 minutes to go in the session. You want to leave it as late as possible, but the good thing about this track is that the majority of invalidations you will see happen pretty much in the first sector. It's quite difficult actually to invalidate in the middle and the final part of the lap. It's usually turn on the inside of turn 2 or the outside of turn number 4 where you tend to see most of the invalidation. So a lot of drivers will go out early just in case they do happen to invalidate their time. They have enough time to back off and go again for another run. We've already seen a lot of drivers have been doing that already this evening so far. Drivers, well, pretty much the majority of drivers actually inside the top 10 have done 2 laps on their softs in that middle stint in the qualifying sessions. So just proving that drivers are taking a bit more life out of the softs in qualifying just because they can. They're able to do so. So that's why you'll see a lot of drivers go out a little bit earlier as Nathan's out onto the track now. Robbie, I think, is coming back into the pit lane. No, actually, Robbie's just starting another run. So Robbie, one of the next drivers to start run, along with Seeb, who's at the very bottom.
Yeah, Seeb at the very bottom. I think Robbie might have just invalidated coming through the centre S, running slightly wide through the second part of it. Seeb 0.2 of a second down at the moment, so must have gone deep into turn number 1. Only a short sector, well, both sector 1 and 3, really only short sectors around this track. Sector 2 takes up about almost half a lap time, so that is really where you're going to gain a big load of the time. And this IRT car seems like it's squivelling all over the place, but 7/10 up again. This is going to put him a long way up the order. Should be challenging where his teammate is. IRT center. It looks like IRT and DRT, unfortunately for them, just don't quite have the pace tonight. But Seeb heading towards the finish line. Is this going to be his last run in qualifying? He gets himself up into 14th. Sounds bad. Only 4/10 of a second off pole.
Yeah, that's how close it is. And considering he lost a couple of tenths in the first sector as well, there's plenty more time in that from Seeb. So if he's got enough fuel in the car and can go again for another run on the same set of tyres, he could pop himself into the bottom half of the top 10 if he nails his first sector. So I still think we're yet to see the best from Seeb, but he's leaving it very late in the sessions to try and improve. Slash is another one on a lap at the moment for TTG, down in 16th on a 6.8. Again, only 4.5 tenths off pole, but is on nearly one of the back 2 rows of the grid. But he's found 2 tenths so far on this lap. He comes up towards the line. TTG obviously locked in that battle with XL for 3rd, and he goes all the way from 16th up to 3rd with just a 3/10 improvement. That just shows how close this field is. Slash now onto the 2nd row.
Yeah, certainly. This could well be one of those sessions where you want to be a bit like on a drying track. You want to be the last car across the line. You do not want any issues getting held up or messing it up early on. Nathan's a 10th down coming through Sector 2 at the moment, so it doesn't look like he's going to improve on this lap unless he absolutely nails the final part of it. And we haven't seen too many drivers getting slipstreams off their teammate at the moment. I thought that might be a tactic, might be seeing some of the drivers do to try and pull themselves up the hill. I wonder if you're going to get it later in the session, and I wonder whether Nathan is just going to go on another lap at the moment. Who else have we got coming up for a lap time? Senna heads towards a line just to start his lap. Killer Blue coming through the first sector now. I think Verstappen is just starting. And a lot of drivers at the beginning of their laps. One man who is nearly end is Milan. 2 tenths up at the moment. This could well put the IFR man on what would be a bit of a shock provisional pole position given their form so far this season. So Milan heads towards the line. 106.404 does it by 11 thousandths of a second. But given the track evolutions we've seen, given how close it is, I'd still be surprised if he stays there.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if he stays there as well. Killer Blue's on a lap as well for XL. He's a 10th and a half up through the second sector, so he could throw himself into that maybe alternate strategy pole position with a good final sector. And it looks like he's trying to get a toe off his teammate, but his teammate's too far up the road, really, for him to be able to get that toe off of them so far. A lot of drivers are invalidated through turn number 2, by the way. I've caught about 4 drivers on their laps making mistakes through there. Campbell and Thyman were 2 of those drivers to invalidate their runs in that corner. So, yeah, drivers really struggling. Izzat now looks like he's going to try and get a toe off Nathan, but gets a really poor run out of Young Shao. Is going to have to hope that this toe works to try and maybe get him and Relentless back onto pole position. It's a long old run to the line, so the toe will gain them maybe a 10th and a half as he crosses the line. Oh my word, if it couldn't be any closer, he somehow splits the gap between Milan and Nathan and goes P2.
I mean, 11 thousandths of a second was the gap. That's less than a blink of an eye. I don't know anything. What is 4 thousandths of a second at the moment? A minuscule gap between the top 2 drivers. Nathan not that far behind either. We've got Tinkan. He's improving at the moment as he comes through sector 2 now, through Miguelio. XL down in 16th and 17th at the moment, and Tinkan's gone up. Milan retired from the session. We won't be getting any improvements from him, and I think it won't be too long before the checkered flag is coming out. We do appear to have a bit of that timing glitch, so it shouldn't be too long before we're seeing drivers on their final laps. Tinkan heads towards the line. What can he do? Heads towards the right-hand side of the track. Gets himself up to 12th place. Cyclonado seems to have gone off there in quite a big fashion out turn number 1. That is a bit of a strange place to lose the car, especially on your own. Campbell gets himself up into 5th place, and I think we've got one of the ERT drivers heading towards the line. The only Tomer not too far away now from finishing his lap. Senna's in the pit, so he won't be improving. The only Tomer goes up into 16th place, but Cyclonado, he's in that alternate strategy position for now. That could well change as Verstappen comes across the line. 14th, the best for QBR man can do.
Yeah, that's going to be 15th now as Robbie goes up into P9 for CPI. So Mr. BT, the early provisional pole sitter, down in 10th at the moment in qualifying. That's how much he's dropped. Verstappen now down to 15th in the session, and Sieb is on another run, so he could use yet another spot in this session. Killer Blue's invalidated. Toma is out of ERS, so he won't be improving, I think, on his time, as Lucas Supremo now goes to the top for LFR on his final run, a 6.3, only one into the threes, and it looked like Milan was about to take a shot pole position, but LFR have stolen it right off them.
Yeah, LFR stealing it there. Was Killer Blue's got off there at probably the worst point. We all know if you lose it out of Young Sao, you just get reset into the middle of the track, and it always does cause a few problems. A lot of these drivers that are on lap seem to be just heading straight towards the pits, as that is, I think Nathan's got himself up into 4th place there. Robbie's down in 9th. Sieb has gone into 11th. QBR Campbell heading towards the finish line. He's done in 6th position. Is there anyone else that is on a hot lap at the moment, or is that it for this qualifying session? I think someone's just heading towards the line there. Not sure who that was, but Burrell retires from the session in the pits. That looks like it is it for qualifying, and it is, I believe, another pole position this season for LFR, and Cyclonado did it at Austria, could only finish in 8th place. Lucas Supremo, though, takes his first pole of the season.
Yeah, brilliant time at the end of the session from Lucas Supremo, but we've said it a number of times this season, haven't we? LFR seem to be really, really good in quali and then struggle in the races. Is this finally their opportunity to break that duck and try and get that first win in EML? That would be great for LFR, and yeah, brilliant time on the board there from Lucas Supremo. Kind of from the depths of nowhere. We weren't really paying attention to him, and he's just popped right at the front of the field alongside Milan. So 2 shock drivers on the front row, but championship-wise, this is a very good qualifying for Relentless.
Yeah, certainly. They might not have the pole position and second row of the grid. Second place on the grid, Lucas Supremo and Milan. They have got the second row, though, is at Kush. 4 thousandths behind Milan. 7 thousandths ahead of his teammate Nathan. Diamond in 5th place. Campbell, lead car for the championship leaders, in 6th. And all TTG 4th over the grid in Slash and Chris G. Roby is 9th. Mr. BT is 10th. Seben Burrell on that alternate strategy pole position. Cyclonado, Tinkan, Jonah, Verstappen, Toma, Killer Blue, Senna, and Ramazan. The rest of the drivers. And this could be a bit of an interesting interesting race, I think. We've already seen, obviously, what's happened in that qualifying session. Anything to watch out for, perhaps, in this race? Who knows whether there could be that slight chance of bad weather.
Yeah, there could be a slight chance of bad weather, like you say. Maybe something towards the end of the race. The start of the race at least looks fairly dry, so it doesn't look like we're going to have too many issues at the start with weather. The one thing, though, we're going to have to look out for in this race is Verstappen. Verstappen had a poor qualifying at Kota, qualified 14th, but was able to recover. We've already mentioned it's a lot more difficult to overtake around this track than it is at the Circuit of the Americas. And Verstappen starts 16th on the grid this time around. That is going to have to be a major recovery job from Verstappen if he wants to get up into a solid point-scoring position in this race. So, yeah, a lot to look out for, especially for QVR. A little bit of a poor qualifying from them.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. They'd have been hoping for a tiny bit more. As soon as you're outside the top 5 on the normal grid and outside 11th to 15th further back, you do have problems. And of course, 2022, that is not going to be a rule anymore. We're not going to be talking about this alternate strategy pole position. So in qualifying, it's going to be a bit more like a pre-or qualifying session. You might as well just go for it. And the drivers are going to be going for it around the next 36 laps at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache. First used in 1973, 4.309 kilometers, 2.677 miles, 2 DRS zones, and 15 corners for the drivers to negotiate. As we take a look at what tyres everyone is on, pretty much what we expected, apart from Cyclonado going for something quite aggressive. His teammate's on pole position, and he wants to get as far up the order in the early stages. He's on a fresh set of softs. Everyone else outside the top 10 on a fresh set of the medium tyres.
Yeah, not surprised by everybody going for the medium tyres. It's the right call. It's the ultimate strategy. You've got to do something different. You can't, on a track like this where DRS trains are so common, you can't just really follow the rest of the field and do the same thing, which is why I'm quite surprised to see Cyclonado do this, especially considering his teammates on pole position on this strategy already. So to me, it would have made sense for LFR to split their strategies and cover both bases in case anything goes wrong safety car-wise at both starts. If there's an early safety car, then Cyclonado could be saved, but if there's a late safety car, he may not be able to benefit like the rest of the medium runners outside the top 10 are. So it's a risky strategy. It could gain him a few places early on, but I don't know if there's going to be any long-term benefits from doing that strategy.
Yeah, certainly. Verstappen down in 16th. He had an absolutely brilliant first lap at the US Grand Prix, got himself to the lead car on that alternate strategy, and of course got himself up into second before he ran out of fuel towards the end. I think one of the CPI drivers had a similar issue. There should be no such problems here at Brazil. It's not known as being a particularly fuel-heavy circuit, as the front 2 cars are already there on the front of the grid. Ramazan's only just come out of Young Sal, so Luca Supremo and Milan are going to have an extremely long wait. This unique grid here, if you're at the front of the grid, you're going uphill. If you're at the back of the grid, you're going downhill. So in a real F1 car, they've got to have the brakes on the grid to try and avoid, obviously, rolling the car and getting a false start. But that shouldn't be the issues for the drivers here. Ramazan just slotting into that last grid slot. Can he get himself a long way up the order as we wait for the lights to come on here for the start of the Brazilian Grand Prix? And we have got 5 lights. They go out and we are underway here at the Brazilian Grand Prix. What are the starts like? It looks like straight away Milan is going to be able to have a bit of a challenge down towards turn number 1. He's out the inside, and that is Milan in the lead of the race. Supremo stays in second place. Campbell's managed to work his way past a couple of cars ahead of Isaac Kush as well. Nathan's also managed to get ahead of his relentless teammate. It looks like everyone's got through the first couple of corners cleanly. Cyclonado coming under a bit of pressure from Sebe, who sends one down the inside into turn number 4. The two of them are side by side on the exit of that corner. Need to be careful coming up the hill. Otherwise, that is exactly what can happen. Cyclonado there and Sebe coming together. Front wing on for Sebe. That's big trouble for him, especially starting on a set of medium tyres. I think Cyclonado must have some damage as well, because he seems all over the place at the moment. Down into 16th. Very close to wiping out. I think it might have been Verstappen then on into turn number 8. But at the end of lap 1, Milan got a bit of a lead here already of 0.6 of a second. A brilliant start from the IFR man. He leads from Lucas Supremo, Nathan, Campbell and Izzet.
Yeah, brilliant start there from Milan to get down the inside. Aggressive as well as Nathan on the back of Lucas Supremos, using a lot of ERS to try and get to the back of the LFR car, but is not going to be close enough. But yeah, Nathan's burnt through a lot of ERS already on this opening lap. Campbell as well, a good start, crucial good start for QVR to get in between the relentless cars from 6th up to 4th on the grid, passing Izzat and Thyman. I think Izzat was kind of spooked by Milan and Lucas Supremo going so deep into turn 1. I thought he was thinking they were going to play it safe and he was going to try and go around the outside and end up getting caught on the outside, and that basically just let Campbell down the inside. So Izzat caught out a little bit in the opening corner. Mr. BT as well, all over the back of Krishy. It's really, really tight, but of course it's so difficult to overtake. We're going to have to wait a while for these drivers for the opportunities to open up, and the lead medium runner Burrell at the moment not doing too badly on those mediums, keeping up nicely. Yeah, he is of course the lead medium runner. It was originally Steve, but he's now in the pits on a fresh set of tyres. He's the biggest loser on the first lap. 9 places, obviously Seclinado, who he had that contact with, and Slash also losing out quite a bit. Killer Blue, the biggest gainer, he's still quite a long way back in 15th place and not really putting any pressure on the cars in front of Verstappen. Looking pretty close to Jonah, taking a slightly different line there just to try and get a bit of a run on this long, not straight, flat out section, shall we say, on the run down towards the centre S. Just not close enough on this occasion, as again Nathan using plenty of ERS, but to be fair, so is Lucas Supremo, and Nathan, apart from a slight mistake there going into turn number 1, was all over the back of the LFR man, and now the DRS train starts, and it is practically the entire field, apart from Seeb and maybe the two ERT cars. Yeah, Thomas just dropped back, unfortunately, from the back of Senna, so ERT already a little bit detached in this race. They didn't look strong in quali there, not looking that great in the race so far, but still plenty of time to go in this race. And yeah, Milan's just starting maybe to build a little bit of a buffer. He's obviously, DRS is now a factor, but he's not under any immediate threat from Supremo behind him. It's 7.5 tenths the gap at the moment, so Milan can sit comfortable in the lead. Nathan, though, looks like he really wants to get on with it, doesn't he? He's all over the back of that LFR driver. It seems Nathan maybe has a little bit of a better car in a straight line, because he's slower in the middle sector, but as soon as we get onto that pit straight, Nathan seems to get all over the back of that LFR car by the end of turn 1. So Nathan kind of needs Lucas Supremo to drop out of DRS range here, because at the moment that's just going to save the LFR driver from any pressure. Yeah, it is, and I said IFR's only had 1 podium so far this season. That was at Azerbaijan. That was Milan finishing in 2nd place in what was his only race this season. So if I was the IFR Academy management, I'd be watching this performance and thinking, maybe we should, we've used our minimum required number of drivers, maybe we should get him in for the rest of the season, because he seems to be doing a very good job at the moment. Jonna all over the back of Tinkan at the moment. The XL driver does have the DRS, but I don't think he's going to be able to do anything about this. Down the inside goes the Quest driver. Bit of wheel banging between the two of them, but I think that was fair. Jonah was far enough alongside, and he takes the place. He is now up into 12th position, and crucially for these medium runners, Burrell, yes, he's almost dropping outside of it, but he is very close to that DRS range. So the longer he stays in there, the better it is for those drivers on the alternate strategy. Yeah, the better it is for the likes of Jonah and Tinkan, but Jonah's already onto the back of Burrell, so I think Jonah may be here. At the moment on the medium compound tyre, seems to be the most confident, doesn't he? He's not looking a little bit all over the place. He got the move done easily on Tinkan. He's straight onto the back of Burrell already, and Burrell has a bit of a wobble out of Young Shao and has just actually dropped DRS range there because of that. So that's going to put Jonah now onto the back of Burrell. It's going to be surely an easy move up towards turn 1. Nathan as well is really close to the back of Lucas Supremo, but doesn't go for the move. Jonah breezes around the outside with the power of DRS, and Jonah now leads the medium train, but crucially they have lost DRS now. They have lost DRS, so I'd say at least for the next 3 or 4 laps, you would expect those cars on the softs to just pull away ever so slightly. Nathan's still hanging in there, still in 3rd place at the moment, and I've noticed that a couple of times. He gets a bit of 10th, but that's at the braking zone, and then obviously just a bit too far back to really send one down in towards turn number 1. It would have to be a bit of a dive, I think, from that far back, and it's all depends. Can he stay close enough in the middle sector? And LFR, they'll be hoping for a home performance. They are a Brazilian team. They'll be wanting to put in some good running here. LFR's best result of the season so far was the 1 podium at the Austrian Grand Prix. This is their 2nd pole position, but they weren't actually able to convert that into pole at Austria. That was Cyclonado, who finished down in 8th place. Normally they've struggled on race pace a bit more than they have qualifying place, but Luca is hanging in there on the back of Milan at the moment, but using a lot of ERS to do so. But he's not really under any pressure from Nathan either. You can see Nathan not really close enough. Someone who is under pressure is Timon. Christian's going to try and make this move down the inside into turn number 1, and Timon, very late on the brakes, manages to hold that, but has he compromised his line
through the second part of the Center S, and I think he's got away with it.
Yeah, he has just got away with it. I was on board with Thyman, actually. He was another one that had a big wobble out of Jung Shao and nearly had to pay the price for it by losing the place to Krishy, but was just about able to hold on. But he did use a lot of his ERS reserve to hold on to that place. So that's how minute the errors can be, and that's how much they can cost you. Such a small error out of Jung Shao, but he was under so much pressure because of it, and that puts him now on the back foot. With Krishy's got way more ERS than Thyman now. So does Mr. BT, and Robbie here at the back of the soft train in 9th position has nearly 100% ERS in his back pocket, whereas all the leaders in front of him have, well, the majority of them below 50 at the moment. Nathan's managed to save some in recent laps, but the likes of Campbell, Suka Supremo, Milan are all running around the 40% range. So Robbie here at the back of the train, once everybody starts to make their pit stops, he can really push with the amount of ERS he's got left, and he's already looking like he wants to push on the back of his teammate.
Yeah, I wonder if CPI here might do a bit of a switcheroo, because Robbie does look a lot faster than his teammate, and I think he's going to go down the inside. Whether that was orchestrated or not, It definitely wasn't. Robbie too deep on the brakes, spins it around, and that was one of the situations where you feel like maybe, just maybe, if they decided to swap them around, that would have been avoided. Definitely not a safe rejoin. He's took out Killer Blue as well. That could well be one that's going to the stewards. Killer Blue completely innocent in all of that. Robbie just tried to get out onto the track, unghosted, and Killer Blue unfortunately losing his front wing. So what looked like a promising situation for CPI turns into a bit of a disaster. And that allows the field, obviously, to spread out that tiny bit more. But the leaders still extremely close together. Top 9 separated by 4 seconds.
Yeah, really, really close at the moment between the soft runners, but yeah, we're just hyping up Robbie to be a possible, really a big factor in this race, and he's gone and blown it really for himself, hasn't he? That was far too late on the brakes, and then taking out Killer Blue in all that situation as well was really ruined Killer Blue and XL's races, and it's also ruined the medium train. They're now even further back from this soft queue. They're 2.5 seconds back. Tin Can's just made a mistake at Jung Shao, so Verstappen's up another place into 12th. So it's not been a good lap for XL. Cyclonado's going to try and make it 2 places lost for Tin Can in towards turn number 1. It's have to go around the outside, still on those soft compound tyres. They're very close together. They make a little bit of contact. Cyclonado a bit side by side with him. They get away with it. Cyclonado's ahead, but now they've lost DRS. The 3 drivers in front.
Yeah, definitely not ideal as Robbie comes into the pits. Killer Blue comes into the pits. I'll be very surprised if that one does not come to the stewards earlier. Killer Blue, absolute innocent party in all of that. Nothing he could do. Jonah's still stuck on the back of Burrell, but he's looking very close. These two now 3 seconds off that soft train up ahead. You can just see Slash making his way around turn number 8, and Jonah, he got close, wasn't able to get the move done. I wonder whether having Verstappen all over the back of him might just give him the hurry up. These drivers only 7.5 seconds off the lead, and it is a pretty standard around 20-21 seconds here in terms of pit stop losses. Unsurprisingly, Killer Blue and Robbie out on a set of the hard tyres, as was Sieb earlier on. They are definitely drivers that are praying for a bit of a safety car. Verstappen's got a much better exit than Jonah this time around. The QRT man's looking like he was attacking early on in the lap. He's going to have to go defensive, and you know what? There's absolutely nothing he can do about that. Verstappen is going to try and make his move up the inside. I thought for a second he might be able to get 2 in 1 there. He'll have to settle for just for 1 place. That is Verstappen up into 11th. Jonah down into 12th. For the lead of the race, though, Cyclonado hanging in there, still all over the back of Milan. Would probably, if they were going to go for a really aggressive undercut, they'd have probably come in roundabout now and put on a set of hard tyres. So maybe leaving it another 3 or 4 laps and then going for the mediums.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be maybe lap 12 or 13. We might see these drivers in for a set of medium compound tyres. There's really no point in putting on the hards because you'll just get swamped by the train. The train will be so fast on that set of medium tyres that putting on the hards now is just not worth it. So, yeah, these guys are going to stay out a little bit longer. And, yeah, Lucas Supremo's really starting to push back against Milan. Milan's ERS is burning out quite heavily. Lucas Supremo's saved up some. So was Nathan. Campbell, interestingly, Campbell in 4th position can't seem to save his ERS, which suggests to me that Campbell is really pushing to try and stay with the top 3. So if he does lose touch with the top 3 for whatever reason, maybe during the pit stop phase, Campbell doesn't quite seem to have the pace of the top 3 at the moment, which would leave him vulnerable to the likes of Izat and Thyman behind, who both have more ERS than the QVR driver at the moment. So that's maybe another story to watch out for as Verstappen makes it 2 overtakes in 2 laps. He's past Burrell, and he's now the lead medium runner, but crucially, he's nearly 4 seconds off that pack of soft runners.
Yeah, we'll see if he can now start closing in, because I think this is the point where you would expect the medium tyres to have to have the better pace all of a sudden. Lucas Supremo, he the first driver to get a 3-second time penalty, and given how many validations we got in qualifying, I'm a bit surprised that we got to lap number 10 before we did see the first driver with a penalty. And given how close things are at the moment, I know there's still a long way to go. If that penalty was applied now, he would drop all the way down to 8th place from 2nd. That is how close things are in EML, and that just shows how you've got to keep it clean and you have got to have the pace as well. Milan's still leading then. Lucas Supremo in 2nd as they head through towards Young South for the 10th time in this race. 26 more times they're going to have to negotiate that corner and do this long run up the hill past the packed grandstands on the right hand side, past that pit lane on the left, and we see our first driver decide, you know what, I'm going to come into the pit lane on this lap. That is relentless Nathan. He's going for an aggressive undercut here. Could well be one that gives him the lead of the race, and I think this should put him out in a bit of free air.
Yeah, definitely will do. By the looks of things, quite a bit of free air actually. So yeah, that's maybe a couple of laps earlier than I was expecting, but sitting in the middle of the train, you may as well go for it. You may as well try something a bit more aggressive. I will not be shocked if we see Izzat in on the next lap to follow his teammate in so that they can maybe link together. We now have to wait to see what Milan and Lucas Supremo do as well, whether they react to that or whether they stick to their strategy. Nathan comes out the pit lane actually right behind Ramazan. That is not what he needed at all, so he needs to get past the ERT driver as quickly as he possibly can. Can he maybe get a run up towards turn number 6 of Ferradura? He's going to have a good old run down the inside. Ramazan's not going to make it difficult on him, and Nathan down the inside crucially gets that moves done, so that's not going to have lost him too much time.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to have to apologise, folks. Pit loss here. I thought it was around 20 seconds. It's more like 18 seconds. Given by what Nathan there, I expected him to come out comfortably behind Ramazan and have at least a lap before he caught him up. But thankfully, for his sake, he was able to get the move done relatively early, as that is now Campbell that's coming to the pits. Simon as well. Isaac Crush stays out that bit longer, and here we could see the power of the undercut. Where are Campbell and Simon going to come out relative to Nathan? They were both behind him, of course, on their way before Nathan came into the pits. And a reminder, just because your teammates in EML does not mean your teammates on the game. You are randomly assigned when using the multiplayer cars, and I think Nathan's going to be comfortably ahead of him. Are they going to have to negotiate their way past Ramazan as well? As that is Jonah has retired from the session, and that is a safety car. Where on earth has he lost that coming out of turn number 1 and 2 by the looks of things?
He's lost it out of turn 1 just before turn 2. I just caught him as I was watching Thyman and Campbell come out of the pit lane. As they were coming out of the pit lane, he was on the right hand side, and I think in his attempt to turn back around, he just drove clean into the wall and retired on the spot. And that is a safety car which massively aids Milan and Lucas Supremo at the front of the field. They were very likely going to get jumped in that, because look how far behind Campbell and Thyman are relative to Nathan. They lost a lot of time in just one lap, so there was no doubt Nathan was going to jump Milan and suit Lucas Supremo by staying out that bit longer, but that safety car has just saved them big time.
Yeah, the only ones who could be in trouble if any of these have, of course, you know, double teammated with each other and have to pull off the double stack. It's not as costly as it was. It did manage to update it not so long ago, so fair play to Commentators for that. But you're going to see all of the soft runners coming into the pits here. You're going to see, I think, every single one of them coming well out, as that is Isaac Kush. He's going to be the one to lose out, and there's another one not too far ahead either, as we've got medium runners coming into the pits as well. I think Chris G might have just been another one who lost out in all of that. Milan, he's gone for a set of hard tyres. It looks like everyone else, Verstappen going for a set of hard tyres as well, Burrell, but they had no choice. They started on a set of the mediums. Really interestingly, that they have gone for a set of hards there, has Milan, and Nathan not lost out anywhere near as much as what we expected. He's still come out in 3rd place.
Yeah, the one that's actually benefited is Mr. BT. Mr. BT is up into 4th for what was, I think, 7th or 8th in the queue, so the CPI drivers massively benefited from that. That is such a shame for Izzat and Krishy as well. They're now at the back of this DRS train. Those were the two that were held up in the pit lane. That is so unlucky for both Izzat and Krishy. I think Izzat was held up behind Milan by the looks of things, and Krishy was held up directly behind. I think it might have been actually it might have been Thyman. No, not Thyman, sorry, Mr. BT. It might have been Mr. BT may have been held up behind. So, yeah, both of those drivers lost out. Crucially for them, they've not lost out to Verstappen and Burrell on the hard. So that's at least a saving grace for them. And yeah, I'm very confused by this hard strategy for Milan. I'm not confused by Verstappen and Burrell. I think that makes full sense at this point in the race. They may as well go for the hard so that they're not completely out of position at this point in the race. But Milan going for the hards with this long left in the race, surely he's just going to be a sitting duck.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think they're really going to have problems now. You'll notice that Tomer and Ramazan have gone for a set of soft tyres. Would not surprise me if they dive into the pits this lap for a set of mediums, because that does count. They'll have done 1 lap on a set of the soft tyres, so they can do that. But if they do stay out, they'll be relying quite heavily on another safety car, and safety cars do breed safety cars quite often, so they might well just get what they want. As that's Milan coming into the pits. He must have put the wrong tyres on. He must have either had a glitch or accidentally selected the wrong tyres, or did the game select hards and he just forgot to change that. But what looked like a fantastic opportunity for Milan here, all of a sudden he's going to be down in 13th place.
This just gets more and more confusing, doesn't it, for Milan? Yes, the hard tyres wouldn't have been great, but surely you go for track position, because the problem now, Milan is down in 30. He's lost 12 places by that pit stop, down into 13th place now. And we've already seen when you're in a DRS queue, it is so difficult to overtake. Not a single soft runner at the start of that race made any overtakes past lap 1. The only driver that did was Robbie, and that's because he completely outbroke himself and spun himself out the side of Krishy's car. So, yeah, I'm really confused by this for Milan. Yes, the hards wouldn't have been great, but it surely would have made more sense to just maybe lose a couple of places at the safety car restart and then hope the hards get better at the end and try and stick within the DRS queue, but a little bit further up.
I mean, let's not forget, he's dropped behind Verstappen and Bavel as well, who are both on a set of hard tyres. So I couldn't have really seen him dropping too far behind them drivers, which would have been where Cyclonato is now. So, yes, answers on a postcard, ladies and gentlemen, as to why you think Milan's done that. Yes, the hard tyres, I think, originally was a mistake, but once you've gone for it, I think the bigger mistake is to, of course, come into the pit and get rid of them. Safety car is coming in this lap. Lucas Supremo, he's going to lead the field around. Don't be surprised if he leaves it extremely late. We've seen this before at the Brazilian Grand Prix. You don't want to give anyone a lovely slipstream all the way down towards turn number 1. And now, of course, Nathan, he's in the pound seats in this race. Even though he's got the slightly older tyres, the safety car should have removed any concerns about getting those towards the end. And he is the lead driver without any penalties. But Mr. BT, Campbell and Simon, they're not too far behind. They can have a good performance here, as that is an ideal restart then from Lucas Supremo. He gets us underway. Campbell all over the back of Mr. BT on the run down towards turn number 1 then. Down the inside goes to Scott in the QBR car, not able to make it work, but Mr. BT will have compromised his line just that tiny little bit coming through turn number 3. He's going to have to go defensive here. Here's the CPI man, and I think you're going to see Campbell. He's going to send one down the inside. No, can't do it on this occasion. So Mr. BT getting away with one there. Lucas Supremo, though, with the ideal restart to lead this race away after the safety car. 22 more laps of action. He leads from Nathan, Mr. BT, Campbell and Timon. I don't actually think there were any moves at all then.
No, I don't think anybody has made a move. The one that was closest was Cyclonadio on the back of Burrell, but just had to backhand of the move into turn 4, so hasn't got past him and into the top 10 at the moment. Verstappen and Burrell, of course, those lead ones on the hards. We've got to keep an eye out for their pace, how they are able to hold on to these medium runners, if they are able to hold on. Milan already trying to work his way back through the field down the inside, gets the move done up to 12th position. Senna trying to hold it down the inside up towards Jung Shao, but just no room there. He's just going to understeer into the side of the IFR car and he backs out of it. So Milan already back up a place, but he's got another 11 places to make up if he wants to get back to where he was. So it's going to be a long old race. Is that on the back of Slash thinking about a move for 6th position, but again, just not quite close enough. Drivers are just going to have to wait for other people to make mistakes to really make these moves in this race. And already Verstappen's nearly a second back from Krishy. The hard tyres at the moment just not providing enough grip to be able to cling onto the back.
Yeah, and what might save him is he's got a hard tyre runner, though, directly behind him. So next lap around, Burrell will have the DRS, and if those two can just work together, it's not going to cost them too many places with Cyclonadio and Milan right behind them. Although Milan seems determined to make us regret the statement that he's going to regret coming in for a set of the medium tyres, because if he pulls off any more overtakes like that, he could easily shoot himself back up the order, lap number 16 out of 36 then here in EML League 1. Let's not forget that League 2 is on tonight as well, I believe, with Oliver Anderson and James Head actually making a guest appearance in the commentary box there. James will also be taking us through the Premier action at 8:30 alongside Mike Edwards there. You can watch that stream straight after this one. Milan all over the back then of Cyclonadio, who is himself all over the back of Burrell and using plenty of ERS at the moment. The two IRT cars are swapping. It looks like Burrell's got pretty decent straight line speed in that IFR car. Not able to do anything here, and if he can get some good defending on, if he's clever, there might be an opportunity to let Milan get past a pair of them.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. In fact, Milan gets a brilliant run through turn number 3. Is he going to be close enough? He's on his ERS. Cyclonadio is going to have to defend this one, maybe from a dive, but Milan the braking zone's just not deep enough for turn number 4, so he has to wait for that move. But yeah, Milan really putting the pressure on. Interestingly as well, Verstappen actually re-caught the medium train in front in the middle part of the lap, so the hards don't seem to be that slow. They are performing a lot better than I expected them to, which just to me makes Milan's strategy all that more baffling, in that Verstappen seems to be able to keep up with Krishy just fine. Burrell is struggling a little bit more, but crucially he is still within DRS range at the moment, so the hard tyres aren't anywhere near as bad as I expected them to be, and they'll only get better as the race goes on. So Verstappen here somehow could be playing himself into a good position by being on the harder compounder tyre.
I mean, we saw this last time. We saw this last month from Verstappen. It's just, he comes into the pits and he's a different beast all of a sudden. You could say he was like that for a few laps before the pit stop. He was passing people all over the place on the run down towards turn number 1, but he's still putting in some good lap times. The hards aren't too bad of a tyre at this circuit compared to the mediums, but what that does mean is that they don't really wear at a much slower rate than the medium tyres. So, yes, they don't have the pace disadvantage that you get at some tracks, but they don't have that life advantage as Cyclonado works his way past Burrell. He is up into the top 10, both LFR cars into the top 10. But as things stand at the moment, Lucas Supremo would drop all the way down to 7th place as Milan does get past Burrell as well. You can only think that one is orchestrated, and maybe watch out for Milan and Cyclonado and see how far up the order they can get. Can they get ahead of Verstappen? And once they do that, especially Milan, given his pace to qualify on pole, or qualify second and lead the race earlier, can he manage to work his way any further up the order? But it looks like Lucas Supremo is just hanging on at this moment in time, and that is a good performance from him, because earlier on Nathan was really all over the back of him, and Lucas maybe was just getting saved by the DRS, but now not looking like he's under any pressure at all.
No, it looks much more confident on the medium compound tyres, doesn't he? All of these top drivers seem to be pushing very hard at this point in the race. I don't think anybody's holding back. And Milan with the fastest lap of the race on that lap as well. When he's down the inside of Cyclonado at turn 1, they nearly make contact but get away with it. Cyclonado has a poor run through turn number 2, though. That kind of backs the pair of them up. Milan's surely going to get a good run here up towards 3. It's going to go all the way into the pit lane exit to try and get down the inside, but with no ERS, Cyclonado is able to get back in front for the corner. Milan really trying to get past as quickly as he can, but he's going to have to try an unorthodox pace here, but he's got so little ERS that he just can't find a way through, and all that's done is drop them off the back of this train in front now.
Yeah, that might, of course, allow Milan to make the move next time around, because if Cyclonado doesn't have DRS, should be able to do it, but you can just see they are just gaining that tiny little bit onto the back of Verstappen. So Milan tried into turn number 1 and tried into turn number 4 as well to Cedo de Largo, but you saw a perfect example of just how important these hybrid power systems and that electrical energy, the ERS, is to these drivers, because even though he had a better run halfway down the straight, he'd run out of steam, and Cyclonado was able to end up retaking that place quite comfortably. Milan is going to give it another go, though. He's in that DRS, he's completely emptied his ERS deal here. You can see there's 0%, he's got no hybrid system whatsoever. I think as long as that is the case, he is going to find it extremely hard to work his way past Cyclonado. Further back, Sieb now trying to get onto the back of Burrell. He's another one. Both IFR cars have gone really aggressive on their ERS here, and Burrell might have a chance here because of that overlap. So much more pace down the inside. Goes the IRT man, and that is Sieb up into 12th place. Can he now maybe work his way up to Verstappen, Cyclonado and Milan? And I think Verstappen must have made a slight mistake somewhere, because all of a sudden that gap between him and the front medium train is 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, he did. He came out of turn number 2, just got on the power too early and lost the rear of the car. It was very well held to not spin, but yeah, crucial mistake for his race, and that could really pay dividends for him later on in this race. And surely that's just going to mean Cyclonado and Milan could both breeze past this QVR driver now down the next 2 straights. Verstappen's nowhere near getting back within range this time around. So yeah, a bit of a sitting duck now for Verstappen could be. That one small error, again, we've seen it many times already in this race, a very small error can cost you big time, and Verstappen here is easily going to lose the place. There's a yellow flag, and technically that's Killer Blue that's gone around, and Killer Blue has had a horror show of a race today. Is that, in fact, retired on the spot? Is that going to be another safety car in this race? I wonder. We'll have to wait and see. Doesn't quite look like anything's coming out for it, but XL, when they're battle for third, that's a horror show for them, especially with TTG with both cars inside the top 10 at the moment. Yeah, TTG really putting in a good performance, slashing 6th, Christian 8th, and always a possibility of gaining on penalties. Milan tries it round the outside of Cyclonado. We're on board with Verstappen, who did lose 2 places into turn number 1, and Milan, he's got so much more pace at the moment. They're now both struggling on their ERS, and that might just be what Milan needs, but I feel the time after Cyclonado will be able to get that move working. But now that they're ahead of Verstappen,
should pull away through this middle sector. Robbie becoming only the second driver in this race on lap 21, which is impressive, to be honest, to get a 3-second time penalty. And that, as you can see there, both Lucas Supremo and Robbie with those 3-second time penalties. Tinkan trying to provide some good news for Excel. He's got himself up into 14th, but unfortunately it is game over for his teammate and game over for Jonah, which caused that safety car. And that is why, of course, we've got the field so close together. As here comes Milan this time. Surely he's going to be able to make it work all the way around the outside before we get to the braking zone. And that is Milan up into 9th place. But Saglanado is going to have the DRS into Decido de Largo. Can't get close enough, so I think that move is finally done. In the lead, though, Lucas Supremo, he's hanging on. He's got a bit less ERS than Nathan, but not looks like he's in too much danger at the moment of running out. Just with this train so close together, the penalties are really going to cost him. Stands to currently drop down into 6th.
Yeah, it's going to be a big drop at the moment for Lucas Supremo if it stays like this. So, yeah, it's really a costly mistake for him. Oh, is that having a big moment there at turn number 6? Yeah, some of these drivers are maybe just overcooking their tyres a little bit in this train. They're really, really pushing hard, and we're just starting to see little errors creep in here and there from everyone around. I am impressed by Lucas Supremo's speed. I think his penalty is a real shame because his pace at this point in the race on these medium tyres is very strong. I think the fact that pretty much half this track seems to be a DRS zone is just stopping him from dropping the rest of these medium runners. I think without that DRS, I think Lucas Supremo would be gone and into the distance at this point in the race. He is absolutely flying. The DRS is keeping Nathan in touch. Nathan obviously with a bit more ERS in his back pocket. Mr. BT for CPI doing a good job in holding on into 3rd as well. And a lot of these drivers are literally just holding on, waiting for penalties for other drivers just to see if they can work their way forwards. I think everybody's just spread out at this point while the mediums are still pretty good. Slash now D-rating in 6th position, so it looks like he might be one of the first ones in that lead queue to lose touch with the other drivers. Yeah, and that'll obviously, again, that'll be good news for Lucas Supremo. That'll be one less car that he's going to drop behind as long as he keeps that 3-second penalty and doesn't get any more. But Mr. BT in 3rd place at the moment. Always difficult when you're 3rd car in the train. CPI 5th in the championship. Highest placed team without any podiums at the moment, but they've been very consistent at getting into the top 10, as that is I think something's happened there. Is it Kush might have some damage there, and I think Slash has got off as well. Yeah, Slash hit the grass in the braking zone there for turn number 11 at Bica de Pato and was spun halfway across the track, and the car didn't go. So Izzat just drove clean into the side of him, which is the second time in this race that Izzat's been really unlucky, held up in the pit stops, and now a car not ghosting directly in front of him. And he's trying to get into the pit lane, but had 2 cars on his inside. He does dive into the pit lane, but yeah, horror show of a lap for Izzat Kush. They're down to 17th position, and Slash, yeah, with a half spin, that's dropped him completely out of contention now. Verstappen in a big old battle with Sieve there side by side. Sieve gets up into the top 10 past Verstappen, who on his hards is continuing to drop back through the field at the moment. Those hards not performing very well, when all of a sudden Verstappen's just starting to fall back now. Yeah, Verstappen just starting to fall back. I think him and Izzat got very close, obviously, when they were coming towards the pits, and Verstappen, he's another one. He's lost all his ERS, so he's going to find this quite difficult. They are just struggling that tiny bit more, and with the way the point scoring system works in EML, that's really bad news. Everyone gets points. It's really bad news for Relentless, because Izzat's way down in 18th, QBR 4th and 11th. Normally wouldn't be a brilliant result for a team, but as things stand at the moment, I think they are about to gain themselves ahead of Relentless in the championship and just extend that gap ever so tiny bit more going into the final 3 rounds of the season. But it is Nathan in the net lead at the moment. He is 2nd with 12 laps to go. Still a 3rd of this race to go. Still can't quite get close enough to Lucas Supremo to make the move work. But we might see him go for it a bit more later on. He'll want to win it out on track, even though, of course, penalties will give him that victory. As Sieb is now up into 9th place. He's had quite a good race. Let's not forget, he was around earlier on. He's made 2 stops. He's now got himself back up into 9th. He's had a really solid second part of this race after the safety car. Yeah, it's been a good recovery, hasn't it? Obviously caught up in that lap 1 incident with Cyclonado and was running around at the back of the field. But at the safety car restart, while a lot of people have fallen through the field and made mistakes, Sieb has capitalised on all of it and jumped inside the top 10. So it's a really, really good recovery from Sieb. He's got a 3-second gap now to Cyclonado and Milan in front, who are continuing their battle. They're on the back of Krishy, but with that mistake from Slash and Izzat driving into the side of him, that's actually affected the other TTG driver of Krishy as well. He's now lost touch with the top 5 in this race. So he now leads a second train of cars in this race. So yeah, it's all kind of split up with that mistake from Slash. We'll have to see if anything else happens in this race. I think Relentless is only saving grace in this race is that being fast on the softs, maybe picking up a fastest lap point, and maybe capitalizing on some other people making mistakes. But at this point, like you say, yeah, that one mistake, and is that now at the very back of the field, is going to cost Relentless big time.
Yeah, certainly. It was just more bad luck for us that rather than anything. As Slash works his way past C, but these drivers battling is going to start frustrating Verstappen, Burrell, Tinkan, Senna, Bobby, and the only Tomer as well, because there's nothing he can really do. Milan's going to try and send it up the inside of Christie, and all of a sudden, Milan is back into the top 6. Now can he show that pace from earlier on and try to catch up to the front 5 drivers, as unsurprisingly Isaac does set the fastest lap of the race? We'll get a bonus point for that, and LFR, of course, did get a bonus point for pole position with Lucas Supremo. Going to be hard for Milan to catch up to the top 5, though. They've all got the DRS apart from Lucas. He hasn't, and he's going to have to try and do this the hard way, even though he is on the ever so slightly fresher tyres on this occasion. But it is still Lucas leading. He's about to take us through to the final 10 laps, and Nathan 8/10 of a second behind. He needs to be careful, because even at this point, the slipstream is not going to be anywhere near as powerful. And if Mr. BT was just a tiny bit closer, you might start seeing Nathan coming under some pressure.
Yeah, it's just Lucas Supremo is really, really fast. I think the saving grace for these top 5 and the fact that they're going to stay ahead of Milan, I think, in this race is because it seems the fastest of the top 5 at the moment is Lucas Supremo at the front of the field, and he's just gapping these guys so much in the middle part of the lap that they can't fight each other in the first sector, really, as there's more moves further down. Tinkan gets a time penalty now as he's overtaken by Burrell, I believe, for 12th position, and Verstappen trying to move on Sieb trying to move on Slash, but they're all just holding each other up at the moment, having their own little battle, really, for the very bottom end of the top 10 as it stands. Yeah, he's gained a couple of tenths, but is going to have to take a lot more than that to close in, and the fact that Lucas Supremo is so fast at the front of the field, none of the top 5, really, despite all being in dirty air, are being compromised in any way.
No, we're at that point in the race now where a safety car would really make things interesting. Would drivers come into the pits, or would they all try to just hold out on their set and medium tyres? Milan maybe would be tempted more than the others, given that he has got the freshest set on this occasion. Christie now nearly off the back of Milan, and that might just give Cyclonato a slight chance. Again, he's very low on the ERS, like he was when he was battling the IFR man earlier on, and that perhaps just tempers his enthusiasm just that little bit. He has to stay behind Christie and think about how he can get this move done. Maybe if he's got that much traction, just wait until Christie has run out of ERS, and he might even be able to send one in the middle sector if he wishes to do so. Still following the TTG driver in the slipstream, but can't do anything. It's another solid performance from LFR. It doesn't look like they are going to get a podium because of Lucas's penalty, but both drivers in the top 8 once again, starting to show that form that they had early on in the season. And I wouldn't count them out for 3rd in the championship just yet, as they currently do stand to score more points than the TTG, as that is Robbie who's been overtaken there by Tinkan. I think he had made the move, but just couldn't hold on to it. Tinkan goes deep, so he's going to have to be much slower through Pinavino. We'll see if Robbie can do anything about it. Let's not forget, him and Excel have already come together once in this race, him and Killer Blue making contact, as Robbie went for a rather optimistic move into the centre S and then lost it as he was trying to recover the car. But this time around, the optimistic move doesn't seem to have caused any damage to any of the other drivers, thankfully. Back towards the lead, it's still Lucas Supremo in the lead. Nathan still can't really get close enough to do anything, and Cyclonado still not close enough to the back of Christie. It's going to be the final couple of laps where we see things happening at the front, as Sieb now makes his way back ahead of Slash. It's going to be the final laps of the race where you see anything happening at the front, because taking a risk now just isn't worth it.
Yeah, really not worth it. Like you say, there's no point taking a risk. If you're Nathan sitting in 2nd place, even if you maybe do lose touch with Lucas Supremo, it's not worth fighting Lucas Supremo with a time penalty, because you then run the risk of getting one yourself or being overtaken by a driver behind if you make a mistake. So yeah, you're unlikely to see any of these drivers really take the risk. It's just about seeing if anybody's tyres really do fall off by the end of the race, or if any other drivers do pick up penalties, whether they can get within penalty range of a car in front. Milan is closing in on these top drivers. Milan does seem to be the fastest person on the track on these medium tyres, but yeah, again, that DRS just can't get him any closer, and Christie is somehow just hanging on to the back of Milan, which is saving him from losing a place to Cyclonado. Although, as I say that, he's just dropped the car out of Zheng Xiao, and that is our, I think, 3rd driver in this race to drop the car around that corner. And TTG's race that was looking so promising is, well, really fallen by the wayside in recent laps.
And all I can say is I'm so glad the ghosting system decided it wanted to work that time, otherwise it would have been an almost airplane crash on the main straight. Robbie all over the back of Senna here. He's been having some really good battles over the last few laps. Down the inside he goes on the IRT, man. There's a bit of wheel banging between them. Senna coming for his namesake's corner, of course, and just able to hold on to that position. He's just held on to the DRS as well, so this is going to be interesting down towards Decido Delago. Robbie's going to have to go the long way round and not quite going to be able to make it. I think there was a bit of contact between the two of them there, but just about getting away with things. What that spin has done is meant that Milan has now almost broken the DRS back to Cyclonado, and what would really help Milan is if the top 5 started battling, because we've seen that generally during this race. If people start going for these dive bombs and start going for these big moves, all they do is cost themselves time, and Milan doesn't need to gain too much to get within penalty range of Supremo, and of course, therefore penalty range of any of the other drivers if they do pick them up. But they've all been remarkably clean at this moment of time. We'll see if any of that changes as we come into the final 6 laps of the race. Supremo, Nathan, Mr. BT, your top 3. Well, let's not forget Lucas still has that penalty.
Yeah, at the moment that will drop him down into 5th position behind Campbell and Thyman as well, but still a solid result, but obviously not what he would have wanted. Senna's dived into the pit lane, interestingly, by the looks of things. I don't know if that is maybe for a front wing change. That was it'd be a very late stop in the race for not really much reason if he was going to come in without a front wing. He actually isn't changing his front wing, so I don't know really what the point in that stop is for Senna. I guess he's going for the fastest lap, but in doing so, he's lost about 4 places in track position, so he's going to gain 1 point for losing 4, which just really seemed to make that much sense. So Senna now down into 18th. He'll go for fastest lap, but yeah, a little bit of a bizarre pit stop there from Senna, and everybody's still remarkably behaved. What you were saying as well about drivers holding each other as they start battling, I think the perfect example of that is this train behind Sieb. As soon as they all started fighting, Slash and Sieb started fighting, they dropped so far behind Milan and Cyclonado. They're now 5.3 seconds back, and that's one of the biggest gaps in the field at the moment. So yeah, just proving that as soon as you start fighting, you lose so much time, and that's really hindered the likes of Borrell and Verstappen's race as well on those hards, when the Haas should be getting better at this point in the race. They've got nothing really to benefit from it.
No, they've got nothing to benefit. I mean, Verstappen did look tidier through the middle sector last time around than Slash, but I think that was more Slash making a mistake. There's no mistake about this move down towards turn number 1. No DRS pass. Pretty much all you're seeing around this circuit, and that is a common theme around most circuits on the F1 game, but that is Slash up into 8th place. They swap around again, and Verstappen, Borrell and all the rest can't really do anything about it. Although Borrell, he's more concerned with Tin Can all over the back of him. Can Tin Can just open his way up? Down the outside he goes, and he's going to have to stay behind for now. What is getting close, though, is Milan starting to close up to those drivers ahead of him. It might be too little too late. 2.5 seconds behind the top 5 now, with 5 laps to go. But I wonder if those extra couple of laps freshness on the mediums are just starting to hold him in good stead. Still wouldn't gain anything from Lucas Supremo, but give him, I mean, he's got to think what could have been, obviously, if he hadn't have gone on the hard tyres, but he's probably, you could say, made up most of the places back. Still not sure it was the right strategy, but I think he's done better than what I expected.
Yeah, it's definitely done better than I've expected as well, and it is starting to bunch up a little bit at the front. Just caught Lucas Supremo having a bit of a moment through Biga Tapato, having a bit of a sideways moment, so it is starting to bunch up at the front. So if they do start fighting, the crucial thing for Milan is he's going to come up to the back of these drivers with a lot of momentum, and as I say that, he picks up a 3-second time penalty himself. So all of what I was about to say becomes a little bit redundant now, because now he's not going to gain anything on the drivers in front, and in fact he's going to lose a place to Cyclonado, which only helps LFR in their battle at the moment for 3rd in the standings. So Cyclonado now up into a net 6th position as Senna sets the fastest lap of the race down in 18th position.
Yeah, interesting that, like you said, Senna decided to go for that fastest lap, because it's not cost relentless anything, as F1 2021 does F1 2021 things. And Aiden, you're going to have to go radio commentary for a while.
Seems to be a common theme, unfortunately, doesn't it, for you, when we get towards the end of a race and the game crashes for you. It doesn't like you commentating over a finish of a race. But yeah, business as usual, it seems, really at the front of the field. I think the one driver in that medium train at the moment who really wants to get a move on is Thyman, it seems, in 5th position. He's quite close to the back of Campbell. Campbell's D-rating as well, so Thyman actually is going to go for a move here for 4th position. He's going to look down the inside, but Campbell loses very late in the braking zone, and Thyman hits the back of him. That was a really, really late move to the inside from Campbell in defense of that position. I think they just about got away with it. We've got a yellow flag somewhere in the middle sector. That is Krishy, who's gone off for a 2nd time at the back of the field, so he's had another spin in this race. But Thyman now down the inside of around the outside of turn 4 of Campbell. Campbell again holds on to the place, but Campbell and Thyman now really battling for 4th position at this point in the race, trying to find a way through. Thyman, if he does get past Campbell, this would be for a net podium position, and I think QRT's first podium of the season as well. So they're really, really looking forward to trying to get that first podium of the season. So we'll keep an eye out for that one. But yeah, it's really starting to heat up now at the front of the field with just 2 laps to go in this race. And Nathan, it seems, on his older mediums, is just starting to struggle a little bit. Can't keep up really with Lucas Raymer. We've got another spin in the midfield now, and just as you've been kicked out of the lobby, it's all starting to kick off. Burrell's now had a spin on his hard compound tyres. He's down to 14th, and Verstappen is up another place. The Slash falls down the field on his mediums.
Yeah, maybe we're just starting to see this point now where the medium tyres are just starting to wear out, of course. Nathan dropped a bit further back from Lucas Supremo. Nothing he can do about that. Timon's still really close to the back of Campbell, and Milan has caught up all of a sudden, but with that penalty, there's nothing he can do, and he's still going to lose out to Cyclonado. Can Timon do anything here? He's really close to the back of Campbell, who is derating on the straight here, so I don't think there's anything the QBR man's going to do, and that is Timon up into 4th place, and with the penalty for Lucas Supremo, that is a net podium. Well, Timon up into 4th position. The only Toma picks up a penalty. That will cost him a bit to Burrell, possibly, as Tinkan actually gets ahead of him. So now, as you'd probably expect, final few laps, everyone's just throwing caution to the wind and going for it all of a sudden. Ooh. Can Verstappen get ahead of Sieb? Down the inside he goes. Sieb's gone straight on. He must have some damage.
He's got a puncture. He's got a front right puncture with a lap and a half to go. Only on 22-lap-old tyres as well. Sieb has got a puncture. I was not expecting punctures to feature in this race, but Sieb has punctured his tyre and he pitted under the safety car. That surely puts a lot of trepidation on those lead runners now. Nathan with the oldest set of tyres of the lead runners, of course, he pitted the lap before the safety car. So we've got to keep an eye out here as Nathan's actually going to go for the move on Lucas Supremo for the lead of this race down the inside of turn number 1. He's keeping it side by side. That was kind of a move he didn't really need to make, but he's not under any threat for Mr. BT behind by the looks of things. So yeah, he thought about the move at turn 1, but not quite close enough. He should win it on penalties anyway. He's going again for the move down towards turn number 4. This should be an easy move this time around. He does breeze into the lead, so he bided his time. He's got the move done, and Nathan looks like he should win this race on track.
Yeah, Nathan looks like he's going to take the victory out on track, as long as that front left tyre, or even I think front right tyre, it ended up being for Sieb because it is an anti-clockwise circuit, ends up holding on. Lucas Supremo down into 2nd. Mr. BT and Simon, they've just got to follow in and know that they're going to get theirs and their team's first podiums of the season. Verstappen maybe just gaining ever so slightly, obviously, with that bit of terrible luck for IRTC. So unlucky after a good comeback earlier on. The first lap of the race was an absolute disaster for him. The final lap has been an absolute disaster, and it's not even pitting on the final lap. He can't even gain the fastest lap point. But Nathan coming up the hill. It looks like it's going to be a bit of a recovery here from Relentless. Things didn't go well for Izzet, but it's been perfect for Nathan here at Interlagos. He takes the victory at the Brazilian Grand Prix. Mr. BT ends up finishing in 2nd. Timon Campbell 3rd and 4th. LFR getting 5th and 6th with Lucas Supremo's penalty. Milan in 7th. Verstappen will come home in 8th place. Robbie's going to beat Slash across the line, but he does have that penalty, so we'll drop behind the TTG man. And then it will be Tinkan, Burrell, the only Toma, Ramazan, Senna. He's going to overtake Ramazan, but again, penalties are going to mean no real changes between them. And Christie and Sieve, the final 2 finishers. But Nathan didn't need to do it on track. Didn't really matter in the end. He takes a victory and just limits that damage that was caused by the unfortunate incident with Izzet earlier on.
Yeah, a little bit of damage limitation, like you say. I think without Izzat's problem, that would have been a really, really good race for Relentless. Izzat was running up in about 6th position before that, but of course that spin for Slash really put him out of contention. But yeah, Nathan's win does recover some of those points lost. Mr. BT as well. Big word for Mr. BT and Thyman, 2nd and 3rd in this race, of course, benefited from the penalty from Lucas Supremo, but 2 teams that have not had the best of seasons. Of course, CPI joined 1 round late into this championship, and QRT are joining, of course, only 3 rounds ago. Both teams now on the podium. I think that's the 2nd time for CPI and the 1st time for QRT. Brilliant drives from the pair of them.
Yeah, superb drives from both of them. Really just showing what a deep grid of talent we've got, even if it does seem to be 2 teams running away with the championship, and one of them taking that victory today. And that was Relentless Nathan taking the win. Tried the undercut, and maybe if it wasn't for the safety car, he'd have took the victory anyway on the undercut, but got the lead on the final lap. Didn't need to with the penalties. Mr. BT in 2nd, Timon in 3rd, Campbell finishing in 4th. LFR getting 5th and 6th. Luca obviously would have got 2nd if it wasn't the penalty, but still a good result from him. And Cyclonado with another solid performance. Milan in 7th, having to do that second pit stop. How costly was that for him? Verstappen gains 8 places to finish in 8th place. Slash and Robbie rounding out the top 10. Tinkan just outside in 11th. Babel, Ramazan, Izat, the only Toma, Senna, Christy and Seed were the best of the finishers. And Killer Blue and Jonah the only retirements. Jonah's of course causing that safety car and ending up causing quite a bit of a change in the race, because Milan looked as though he had the pace before that happening, and obviously went onto a set of hard tyres. Still think he might have been better served just sticking on them.
Yeah, I think it would have been the better choice, really. He would have been able to keep up with that top train and then benefited from the penalty of Lucas Supremo, and it could have stopped him from getting a penalty himself as well. You've got to say, arguably, Milan was the fastest driver here today, but yeah, kind of blew it for himself in the pit strategy, unfortunately. But yeah, a lot of fascinating storylines from that race, and a great drive from Lucas Supremo. It's a shame for LFR that that's not their first win, but obviously that penalty cost them big time. But for them in the championship, a 5th and a 6th place finish is really strong for LFR at this late point in the championship.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do some extremely quick maths here, but I think the gap between... Ooh, don't quote me on this. I think the gap between QVR and Relentless might have grown by 1 point. So it could be 10 points now going into the final 3 races, as we are going to take a look at where we are going next time out. And it is going to be the Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari in Italy. It is Imola, and always a track that the drivers find enjoyable when they get it right, but extremely difficult.
Yeah, really, really difficult. Could not be more different to this track, really, could it? It's all about it's again similar in Brazil in terms of track position, but the curbs are vicious around that track. It's very, very high speed. There's so many things that can catch you out. There is no margin for error. There's barely any tarmac runoff, and penalties will play a factor as well. So yeah, going to be a really, really interesting race next time around.
Yeah, it is indeed. So make sure to check out that. Make sure to check out the Premier action tonight. James Head making his second appearance along of the night with Mike Edwards. Qualifying will be starting there in about 15 minutes' time. And check out the rest of the action on LRTV throughout the week. TTML is back, of course. Their second rounds of the season will be starting tomorrow, Friday and Sunday. We've also got full throttle racing as well. I believe that is on Wednesday, same time that we are seeing EML tonight. But that is it for me and Aidan. We will see you in a month's time, 5 weeks actually, for Imola, where the battle between QVR and Relentless is really starting to come to a head. Who will take the advantage there? Or will we see another team maybe just pull on a bit of a surprise in the final few races of the season? Thanks to all you guys for your comments in the chat. Thanks to Aidan for watching. But until next time, take care of yourselves and goodbye.